Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries, and gender non-conforming folks. Following fight tonight, we'll settle a generational conflict once and for all. In the red corner, we've got subs. In the blue corner, we've got dubs. Now, here comes a disclaimer! Like any and every analysis and review that I've done from the perspective of someone who has intensively studied writing, psychology, and sociology, this video is fully intended to be in-depth, informative, educational, and entertaining. I will be analyzing this debate from various perspectives and angles, examining the perceived as well as the factual advantages and drawbacks of both mediums, including but certainly not limited to, digging deep into some very unpleasant truths that stem from and as a result of this argument being perpetuated over the years, what sub versus dub culture says about us, and how our collective consciousness perceives media as a whole, its impact on the very same media we consume, some very harmful stereotypes that both sides of the argument continue to perpetuate, whether consciously or subconsciously, and why the worst parts of the sub versus dubs debate are simply saturated in casual ableism. That's right, y'all, you get to learn a new word today. I also want to take a moment to preface this video by saying that in regards to this specific topic and this specific video, I'm not saying it's not okay to like what you like. Personally, I watch both because, 1, as a child, I was very prone to ear infections, and that, along with the result of past, repeated, and very severe head trauma, as well as what appears to be hearing loss passed down through my family, means I've been living the better part of my life with significant hearing loss. TLDR, I'm very, very hard of hearing. So please don't take it personally if you call my name at a convention whenever those start back up and I don't hear you or I get startled when you approach me from behind. I just literally couldn't hear you. Plus, I have a not so little disorder called APD, but more on that and its ties to sub and dub ableism later. 2, despite that, I'm not letting it stop me from chasing my dreams of becoming a professional voice actor. And as someone currently in school studying different forms of acting in order to one day become an effective professional performer, I personally benefit educationally from watching, listening, studying, and examining both mediums. Number 3, I simply love watching both. And number 4, well, because once upon a time, that wasn't the case. Back when your boy was an ill-informed young weeb with an ill-informed young weeb's ways, I was firmly on the side of hell yeah, subs only, so I can both objectively and personally understand and effectively analyze all sides of each individual argument. I promise I'm not here to someone else's I'm here to offer you a fresh perspective on an old debate. So, like my favorite boys of free, let's dive right in. First, a bit of background and a couple of key words you need to remember going forward, just in case you're new to this debate, and that's perfectly okay. Subs is the shorthand of subtitles and refers to the various mediums of media that employ this very versatile form of text-based reading and communication to its respective audiences. Subs serve a multitude of purposes. Along with being used to translate the original media into various written languages for multilingual audiences to read and understand, they're also a major blessing for people with varying degrees of hearing loss or for people like me who live their day-to-day lives with APD, or auditory processing disorder. APD can affect both children and adults and works in a way that makes it difficult for our ears and subsequently our brains to comprehend, interpret, and as the name states, process information that is verbally or auditorily presented to us. For example, I probably say huh, what, or anywhere between 50 or 60 times a day. Something else I and a lot of other people with APD do is when you ask us a question, we'll be like, what? And when you go to ask the question again, before you've even started asking it, we'll answer you. Our blank stares or that gap of silence is our brain simply trying to process the information you've given us. It's like there's 50 other processors running in the background, which in turn slows the relaying of information you've presented us through whatever method we use to process auditory data. Another example of this is listening and watching to the TV or my phone or playing a game with the volume up at full blast and literally having heard none of the past 5 seconds or so of dialogue. My APD also enjoys playing with my ADD and my ADHD, so there's a good chance I'm probably disassociating heavily and thinking about something totally far removed from whatever media it was I had just been consuming only 10 seconds before. Conversationally, and largely in due part to APD and autism, I also struggle on the daily with visually processing faces and names as well. Many people with autism and other neurodivergencies experience this. As you can imagine, in my line of work, where it is literally my job to interact with people, you can see how it can be especially anxiety-inducing when I'm fully expected to remember, okay, this face belongs to that important contact. This extends even to people who I'll be friends with on social media for years, but if I don't interact with them on a daily basis, see enough pictures of them regularly, or anything to that effect, when we meet in person, I'm not going to know who you are, and my anxiety loves playing hell with my guilt for that. Honestly, as much as I miss and desperately love conventions, not hearing people call my name, or not remembering someone I may have met the year before, no matter if they're a fan or a business partner, probably one of the biggest anxieties that I've been able to avoid this year, at least in terms of what comes along with being neurodivergent and an ambivert. Ooh, lots of new words today. Even texting, a form of subtitling nonverbal communication is a huge saving grace for me and so many others, compared to talking on the phone where I and so many others have to struggle to follow the conversation, which, as you can imagine, does wonders for my anxiety. It really doesn't. Sarcasm, y'all. Sure, I sound professional AF on some of my scripts, but that's if you're not listening for my anxiety-inducing speech impediment and stutter that I actively work on every day to improve, or you are unaware of the knowledge that part of the reasons why it takes my videos so long to get out is because certain aspects of the overall process take longer than others. For example, anytime I read a script, my comorbid dyslexia and OCD will have me stumbling over every other word that I myself write. It will take me hours to record a script that is only 5 or 6 pages in length, and why I generally try and keep even my longest videos under 30 minutes if I can help it. That said, if you catch me in real life, off script, and no, I don't mean at a panel where I've likely had literally months to kind of mill over and stress out about what I'm likely going to say in advance because OCD and anxiety, I mean catch me wandering the floor of any convention when I'm not expecting it and strike up a conversation with me. I may be a little surprised because, anxiety, but you'll definitely see the difference is night and day, even after I've relaxed a little bit. And what's important to note is that one of the key symptoms of OCD and autism is typically people will write out scripts in their head, hence why I function so much better when I'm working from a script. But you kind of get the idea, right? Subtitles are quite beneficial in that regard, and it's largely for that reason that I used to try and incorporate subtitles into my past videos. That, and if there's something I want to clarify in the video, then subtitles provide me with the opportunity to make corrections, notes, annotations, and overall just raunchy subliminal messaging. However, I'm also entirely responsible for the production of my videos. I do everything myself, including writing the scripts, recording and editing the audio, finding optimistically copyright-free pictures and clips to use and edit in the video, even the little logos you see in my videos for North Caesar and recently Black Girls Anime. So head on over there, give those videos a watch, and give BGA and the other baddies their follow. TLDR, and just to kind of steer this conversation back on track, subtitles can be incredibly time-consuming, and I just run out of the energy to do them, especially if I have a deadline. It will take me days to work on one video from conception to delivery, and I really do consider making these videos a labor of love. I know that's no excuse given I myself am hard of hearing, and I want these videos to be more exclusive for everyone, so I will definitely do better about staying on top of my subtitles, especially more so now than ever, now that YouTube will be removing the community caption feature, which greatly limits accessibility for hard of hearing people, much to a lot of the community's perfectly justified upset. However, subtitles can also have their downsides as well. There are two exceptionally valid sides to this argument. One has to do with the hilariously bad mistranslations that can and will confuse anyone using subtitles in any capacity to follow the story. Many things can and have been lost in translation, particularly if they don't speak the language, as is the case with many English-speaking fans of subs who prefer watching the original dub. For people who speak both Japanese and English, or whatever 2 or more languages that are being dubbed and subbed, the translations of the subtitlings themselves are often subject to harsh criticism by people who are fully aware that what is being said is not consistently nor properly, or maybe even offensively, being translated into subtitles. And sometimes it's not even the way it's subtitled. It could just be that the original dub makes no sense when translated, or is so poorly written that it wouldn't be comprehensible no matter what language it was translated into. Oh hi, official Ghost Stories English dub that definitely didn't age well, but it's still one of the funniest dubs to exist alongside Golden Boy. In the promo for this video, I invited people all across our Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter platforms to tell me why they preferred subs over dubs or vice versa. And while almost every last response was perfect, I say almost because one YouTube user who has clearly never seen any of my videos, obviously, was absolutely assured and subsequently offended that this video was going to be nothing but cheap clickbait that would pit the two sides against each other. I shall now recite the comments, plural, staying true to his authentic authorial intent. I don't why you're doing this shitting pointless argument. Only subhuman idiots would created something this divide. He then went on to remove the above comment, only to write, "This is a pointless argument from a bunch of subhuman trolls that don't, no apostrophe, have good taste." To which I politely replied, "Thank you for your input, itadakimasu." This comment helps further along our research in our subhuman trolls that don't have good taste department. Your contribution matters, non-threatening Blackheart. And yeah, sure, while I've always been aware that there have been people like this out there, obviously I make my videos not to troll, but to teach. I mean, if you discount the last 60 seconds or so, then I mean, yeah, I was kind of trolling. But yeah, fuck yeah, multitasking. But that does bring me to some of the other feedback that I received. User QRW6 on YouTube says, "I prefer dubs, but subs will always be superior since they were originally intended for the Japanese audience. It's a passion that always determines if a dub hits a home run." On Instagram, commenter Warren Albert9 says, "Sub, because if I wanted to hear English, I would watch cartoons and not anime." SK13 Great says, "Subs." Via Twitter, Carry On Shell says subs and follows up with a gif of RuPaul Paul saying that the time has come for you to lip sync for your life. Definitely the most creative response. Conundrum Nom says, subs all the way. I grew up on dubbed anime, but the issue with dubs are the weird voiceovers. Why must everything sound so goofy and childish? If the English voiceover could convey the same tone as the Japanese ones, then I'd watch more dubbed anime. What's very interesting to note about these responses is that they accurately reflect the feelings of many people who prefer watching subbed anime, movies, and so forth, being that they feel the original Japanese dub is far more quote-unquote authentic than the English dub, which in itself can be seen as a very valid argument, given there are countless cultural references, language-based verbal and vocal histrionics, as well as many other factors that ultimately give the original Japanese dubbing a type of authenticity that, yes, can occasionally prove challenging for dubbing actors to convey in different languages. However, one thing that many die-hard English-speaking fans of subtitled anime don't realize in their vehement refusal to give dubs a try, and something I myself did not realize as someone who used to watch only strictly subs for that reason, is this. Unless you were born immersed, speaking, listening to, or studying the Japanese language, or any language for that matter, there's actually no way of knowing if the original dub is actually just as good or bad as many people perceive the English and other translated dubs to be. Just like there are incredible English dubs and voice actors out there are also amazing Japanese dubs and voice actors as well. And we certainly can't discredit the outstanding and utterly undeniable talent of Black and bilingual voice actors who have made their way in the industry doing authentic Japanese dubs with such precision and accuracy that I don't even realize they're Black until I look up the cast list. Like I said, it's not enough to simply speak a language like Japanese or any other for that matter. You have to know and be trained to listen for the types of verbal and vocal cues and inflections that are strictly and culturally Japanese as well. And sometimes a bad dub is just a bad dub no matter what language it's in. It's perfectly fine to prefer subtitles, especially if you're a fan of the original language dubbing actor and follow their work. However, if you're someone who only speaks and understands English, it's just a little bit on the hypocritical side to completely disregard English or non-Japanese dubbing when you say you prefer a language that you can neither speak, understand, write, nor discern the inflectional, verbal, vocal, tonal, or cultural references of. Like I said, I'm not trying to drag anyone. I'm simply speaking from the perspective of not only my past cringy self, but many other people who originally found themselves hating English and non-Japanese dubs for those exact reasons, only to later grow to enjoy both mediums because we ultimately realize that line of thinking is inherently a little bit on the flawed side, and understandably so. Yet, despite all of that, I still wanted to become a voice actor ever since I was a child. So, in hindsight, I probably didn't hate dubs as much as I thought I had. Because, growing up as a Black child, I think I may have been a little traumatized by the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, and other shows from other years ad infinitum, plus the networks like 4Kids and other major still existing companies today, from the blatant whitewashing and cis-hetero washing of Japanese and queer characters, or cousin washing, as I like to call it, but probably shouldn't because that just sounds awful, and just kind of internalized and associated English dubbing with that type of negativity. I don't know, it's a mystery. However, I'll admit that despite this persisting generational racist-ass trend showing no signs of stopping entirely, I will say that the industry has gotten significantly better about that, but more on that later. One more thing I want to touch upon before I move on to talking about dubs is the very harmful perpetuation of the stereotype that people who prefer dubs can't read, and speaking as a neurodivergent person with dyslexia that swings back and forth from moderate to severe and does greatly impact and affect my off-script speech pattern, that joke is getting less and less funny. Plus, it does very little to encourage people out there with dyslexia and other learning disabilities. The best jokes punch up, not down. It's not a matter of, oh, people can't take a joke anymore. It's, hey, no, your joke isn't funny, it's offensive, and we are not our ancestors, we will not allow this nonsense to continue, and it truly minimalizes and makes light of the very real struggles that I and many others face in our day-to-day lives, that you, as an entitled, privileged, neurotypical, able-bodied, cis-hetero, non-Black, maybe person, can simply make light of because it doesn't closely affect you or anyone else. And you know what, I'm not trying to preach because you know what, I fuck up too at times, but still, I try and be better, and I want everyone out there within my voice to try and be better as well. Remember the word ableist? Well, ableist language is language that is offensive, derogatory, and or abusive, and includes the systematic exclusion or oppression of people with physical disabilities or mental neurodivergencies. Such examples of this include going to an official city event, let's say Pride, and there being stairs but no elevator or ramp to access said event. However, the example I'm referencing, and the one that is most relevant to this conversation, is outwardly calling into question the reading comprehension and overall intelligence of people who prefer dubs. Take it from me, y'all. People who are adept at reading and writing, regardless of if they are neurotypical or neurodivergent, are of course going to have an easier time reading subtitles than those who struggle with reading comprehension, particularly at the quick-fire pace that subs are depicted in order to keep up with the dialogue and the overall story. Reading subtitles, even when the language of the audio matches the text dialogue, is something that admittedly takes more than just simple practice. It's being able to follow two conversations at once, both audibly and visually. And for some people, that is a lot of information given in a very short amount of time. Me personally, whether I'm gaming, watching Netflix, anime, or what have you, I usually have the subs or closed captions on at least 98% of the time, so long as they're available. However, more than not, for the reasons I've listed thus far, I have to rewind a lot of the time as well because of either missed information or failing to process the new information I've been given because I'm still trying to process the previous lines of dialogue. And for certain very fortunate people, the debate isn't even that deep. They just prefer dubs and that's the end of that. And once again, that's perfectly okay. So to outwardly declare subs are better than dubs and to call people who either can't process subs or simply just prefer dubs ableist ass terms like retarded or slow isn't contributing anything to the overall conversation. Thank you. I don't give a shit if you joke around with your friends like that, but attacking random people you don't know over what you perceive to be their reason for their own preference is hella ableist and rude. If you want more information about the topic, check out at Fresh Prince of Saiyan's Instagram post about ableism's place in the dubs versus subs debate. Now, let's look at the pros and cons of non-Japanese dubs, better known as dubbing. The process of removing the original Japanese and or other original language voice track and replacing it with one's own native language, typically in proximity to and with the geographical location of where the series, video game, movie, and so forth are being released. For starters, when a series is properly dubbed, not only does it allow for the media to be marketed in countless other multilingual markets across the globe, ergo expanding its production and audience range, but this in turn also makes the companies more money, which can be put towards other valuable production resources that creates many jobs vis-a-vis artists, writers, storyboarders, vocal talent, and the many complex and costly and time-consuming nuances that factor into producing a single episode, much less and especially an entire continuation of your favorite form of entertainment. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Another major benefit of dubbing anime, and drawing back to my previous comment about the dubbing industry leaving certain ashy practices in the 90s, is that when an English dub can genuinely respect the original Japanese source material, particularly linguistically and culturally, the result is an incredibly well thought out, inclusive, and truly masterful balance of the two cultures. I could be here all day talking about the miniseries that does this, most recently The Great Pretender on Netflix. However, and to show that yes, there are other brilliant shows outside of mainstream shonen, I'll be referencing a series that literally changed and saved my life. Natsuki Takaya's Fruits Basket, or Furuba, both the original 2001 English dub and the very recent 2019 remake adaptation that faithfully recaptures the events of the 23 event manga in its entirety. Y'all listen, this is one series where the English dub is done so well in both iterations that I will literally be more than happy to wait months at a time for the 2019 dubbed episodes on Funimation. COVID be damned. And yes, it has everything to do with the fact that not only did the majority of the original 2001 cast reprise their roles for the 2019 adaptation, but also because many beloved characters that were exclusive to the manga but didn't appear in the 2001 adaptation finally get their chance to shine and be known and loved by the world at last. If you want a perfect example of how far the dubbing industry has come, with credit due to how far it can still go, then look no further. In the 2001 dub, the voice actors placed little to no inflection on their characters' Japanese names, nor the finer Japanese linguistics. However, for the 2019 dub, nearly 100% of the linguistics are there. And the cast definitely deserves their roses for putting in the effort to pronounce Japanese names and words exactly, or as close as humanly possible, as they're said in their native pronunciation. For example, Toru is now Toru, Shigure is now Shigure, Hattori is Hattori, Momiji is Momiji, Ayame is Ayame, hi Chris, Kagura is Kagura, Akito is Akito, Yuki is Yuki, and even Yuki and Kyo's nicknames like Yunyun and Kyankyan have made it into the cut, and there's noticeably more emphasis placed on the honorifics like Chan, Kun, and San. The list goes on. And again, this is why representation is important, because speaking as someone who has been studying the Japanese language on and off since childhood, and who was literally made fun of growing up for practicing the proper pronunciation of these names and words as they should have been said, to see some of my voice acting idols doing the very same in a professional line of work, including Chris Sabat, of whom I had the honor of interviewing for North Caesar a few years back, well, it just felt like the universe coming together, y'all. Not only for me, but for every other person out there, especially Black, who has genuinely been practicing their Japanese for this specific reason. Unfortunately, because of the dubbing industry's spotty history, relatable moments like these can often go overlooked because some people adamantly refuse to give dubs a try. As I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest and perfectly justified critiques against dubbing is the commonplace practice of whitewashing and cishet washing, among various other brands of Diet Dr. racism meant to wash down that slice of prejudice pie. Many of the linguistic and especially cultural issues can be tied back to the imposed white supremacy forced upon shows that come from both outside of the country as well as the ones produced right here in the not so good old US of A. Wake up, get out there, people. However, if that's the case for many fans who prefer subs, and we choose to hold English dubbing to that standards that Fruits Basket has now set, then I have no doubt that dubs can continue to flourish so long as the effort is made on the part of the English and other multilingual voice cast, yes, but especially the creative directors overseeing the project to encourage them to make that effort. However, like I mentioned above, sometimes a bad dub is just a bad dub, no matter what language it's in. And sometimes yes, there are dubs out there that are so bad, they are still iconic and cherished to this very day. If Fruits Basket's growth and evolution over the years is any indication, then it's completely safe to say that fans will not only appreciate a great dub, but will remember it for literal decades, as well as genuinely come to love the work that the directors and the voice actors put in as well. Many people are concerned about quote-unquote authenticity. However, I can safely say there is nothing inauthentic about the literal tears I moved to watching and listening to the breathtaking performances of the 2019 Fruits Basket English cast. To be able to bring out such deep, complex, and visceral emotions in your audience, as well as staying close to the original source material as possible, is integral to what makes or breaks a dub. So what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, some people like subs, some people like dubs, and that's okay. To put it simply, it's perfectly okay to like what you like and enjoy what you enjoy, so long as the reasons you like it aren't fundamentally harmful and at the expense of others. It's very important to remember to contribute to and progressively advance the overall entire conversation surrounding dubs and subs, for better or worse. Thanks again for watching, y'all. Be sure to like this video, check out my other videos available on North Caesar's IG and YouTube, and big news, as of earlier this week, you can now find my content over on Black Girls Anime. Subscribe to North Caesar Entertainment for even more videos like these, where I give in-depth, informative, educational, and entertaining analyses and reviews of your favorite anime, manga, video games, and more.